Welcome to the digital lecture series of FU Best, the European Studies program of Freie Universität, Berlin. In 15 sessions, we will offer you a broad overview of FU Best academic course offerings. You can choose from 12 subject course lectures representing a wide range of disciplines and 3 live sessions on German language and culture. Our series is divided into 4 themes relevant to European studies in Berlin and Germany today. Each will be dealt with by a group of FU Best instructors from the perspectives of their particular disciplines or German language levels. Part 2 explores a range of concurrent national and personal identities in present-day Europe, Germany and Berlin. We will look at Germany's political role or roles in Europe, the interplay of religion and of popular culture with the identities of specific groups of Germans, and the meaning of art for the creation of a national identity in Europe. All sessions will offer you insights into our instructors' semester-long regular courses within the FU Best program and the way in which they integrate Berlin as a cultural and historical location. We hope you enjoy the online program we've assembled for you. For more details about the lecture series and our regular on-site FU Best program, visit our website later. You will also find additional information at the end of today's lecture. With that, enjoy the following session and see you soon in Berlin.
I'm Martin Jander. I'm historian and journalist, and in the moment I'm sitting here in the middle of Berlin and talk to a webcam. Hello, welcome. I'm historian and journalist and teach in this program for, let's say, 10 years, a little bit more. I want to begin this presentation by saying thank you to your parents and grandparents. Thank you because without what they did, Europe would not have been liberated from National Socialism. The defeat of Hitler was the precondition for the liberation of Europe, and that Europe could become a continent of democratic countries, a federation of democratic countries so far. The soldiers, officers and generals of the Allied armies sacrificed often their lives for this liberation, and this is the reason why I want to say thank you very much. Many Germans backed Hitler and did not fight for liberation. They did the opposite. And they even did not stop to kill the Jews. You see here an important picture of an important place in the city of Berlin, the so-called Track 17. That is a special track of a railway station in Berlin. It's the S-Bahn stop Grunewald. You can go there and visit there. It's my proposal for you to go there when you're in Berlin. And from that railway station, Jews were deported in the death camps in Poland, in other Eastern European countries. The last train from that railway stop left Berlin on March 27th, 1945. So the deportation of Jews to kill them in the death camps went on until March 1945 from Berlin. When the soldiers of the Allied armies arrived to the city of Berlin, they were not really welcomed. Berliners were not really happy. And in the other places of Germany, Germans were not really happy. In New York, in Paris, in Rome, in Moscow, people were dancing on the street. Hitler was defeated. The war was over. The Shoah was off. But not in Berlin. Nobody was dancing in the street. People were not very happy. I was not born in Berlin, but I came to the city for the first time when I was 4 years old. Here in that city, my grandfather lived, he invited me, and the first thing he did with me was we had a drive in the double-decker bus. He bought me an ice cream, and we had a visit in the Berlin Zoo. What I did not know when I met my grandfather when I was 4 years old, that he had been a member of the NSDAP, that he had kicked out Jews of their jobs in 1933, that he was participating in the preparation and the development of gas weapons for the Nazi warfare, and that he had joined the march of Hitler in Munich in the year 1923 on November 9th, when for the first time Hitler wanted to destroy the German democracy in the Weimar Republic. This visit to Berlin and the history of my grandfather, which I did not know when I was in Berlin in 1959, that was, so to say, the starting point for me. First of all, I said, this is my city. Secondly, I said, I have to understand this history. How could my grandfather become so fascinated from Hitler? How could he develop weapons for gas warfare and other things? I did not understand that when I started to understand. In my class, students will not only read books, they will see special places in the city of Berlin too. For my class, I have chosen the Gedenkstätte Deutscher Widerstand, a museum that shows the resistance of Germans against Hitler. It is located in the place where, on July 1944, those members of the German military who had attempted to kill Hitler, where they were killed after the attack on Hitler had failed. The museum shows a lot of many courageous people that were protesting and Hitler and tried to kill him, but they were a small minority. It was not an accident that Hitler's Germany had to be defeated by the soldiers of the Allied armies, by your grandparents and parents. The resistance in Germany was very weak, and they did not only have to fight against Hitler and his friends in the regime, they had to fight against a lot of people in the German population who backed Hitler's regime. A small commentary aside of this special place, the museum that tells about the resistance. Your grandparents and parents are not part of that museum, and the courageous resistors of all the other European countries, like in Poland, like in France, like in other countries, they are not part of that museum too. So in a way, I think it's not the best museum we could have, but it is a very important part to see in my class about German history and its modern context. When we talk about Germany in my class, we deal with mainly 4 periods. First period, 1871 to 1918, that is the so-called German Kaiserreich or Imperial Germany. Second period, 1918 to 1933, the so-called Weimar Republic. Very short, 15 years between the 2 world wars. Third period, 1933 to 1945, the National Socialist, German National Socialism. And last period, divided Germany, the period directly after World War II until the end of the division of Germany in the year 1980-1990. In the first period, 1871 to 1918, Germany was no democratic republic. It was a constitutional monarchy, Constitutional monarchy meant this was a monarchy. They had a parliament, but the parliament more or less did not have so much to say. And when the king said, okay, I do not like what they decided, then he dissolved the parliament and said, you have to have new elections. That happened for many times. Constitutional monarchy in Germany, and it was a very imperial state, the Kaiser, as you can see on the picture, he developed the German navy to beat mainly Great Britain and France. So Germany was on the rise to become an imperial society as important, as strong as Great Britain and France. It had colonies too, and yeah, but it was not a democracy. The, in my eyes, best analysis of this Germany in its formation years, so to say, the beginning of modernity in Germany, was written by a sociology writer, Mr. Ralph Dahrendorf. And he said the interesting thing with Germany in those times was it was a modern society in the sense that there was industrialization, there was urbanization, but it had, so to say, a lack of democratic culture. It was a monarchy with a parliament which did not really have the chance to control the Kaiser, and that meant that many people in that society were not really represented in the political institutions. Dahrendorf says in the 18th, 19th century, we have in Europe something like a revolution of modernity. And the center of this revolution of modernity is, first of all, that, well, everybody is a citizen. A citizen did not exist in the societies before. Secondly, not everybody is, not only that everybody is a citizen, the second thing is that everybody should get the chance to develop its talents. That does mean he does not only have rights that are written in the Constitution, he's given the chance by a democratic policy to develop his talents and so to become that person he wants to be. And thirdly, that the political body of such a modern society is constructed in a way that everybody can participate in all the belongings of that society, in everything that is important for that society. And all these things were not really existing in Germany. Well, it had a constitution, but this was not really a democratic, open society. It was a constitutional monarchy, and many people were not represented. Authoritarian politics was done. But it was not only a constitutional monarchy, it was a society with an anti-Semitic mindset too. Maybe you heard about one of the best-selling books in the 19th century. It's by Stuart Houston Chamberlain, and the title is, you can see it here, The Foundations of the 19th Century. He published it in 1899. That was one of the top books of the German Kaiser, Wilhelm II. He read it to his kids, and he ordered that the soldiers and the officers of the German army should read that book. So he was an outspoken anti-Semite as the author, Mr. Stuart Houston Chamberlain, and the structure of the German society was that the Jews in that society did not have the full rights. It meant that they were allowed to become soldiers, but they were not allowed to become officers. They were allowed to become students in a university, but they were not allowed to become professors at a university. So Jews had not full rights, and the mindset of many people in that society was anti-Semitic. The Kaiser was an outspoken anti-Semite. But Germany was not only a constitutional monarchy, so not a really democracy. It had not only a outspoken anti-Semitic mindset, it was racist too. I told you about one of the favorite places of me in Berlin, the Berlin Zoo. In summer 1900, the Berlin Zoo was showing in a special part of the zoo people from the German colony Samoa. They were presented besides elephants, besides lions and other big animals. So they were shown as, let's say, a race of animals in the Berlin Zoo. This was the Berlin mindset. This was the German mindset. People of color were not citizens as all the others. And so, because that was the mindset of that society in 19th century, it was not really astonishing that this society committed the first genocide of modern times. In one of the colonies that was called Deutsch Südwest, today it's the country Namibia, in the years 1904 to 1908, the German army committed a genocide. The people over there had protested German colonial rule, and the German army was driving the protesters into the desert, and they were just dying. Around about 60,000 people died, and I tell that story. It is a story of the past, but until today, the German government has not said, oh, sorry, that was a bad thing, we shouldn't have done that. And they have not paid any reparations for that. Since 2015, the German government and the government of Namibia have contacts, and they discuss about such reparations, but until today, there is no decision. So until today, Germany has not said sorry for these crimes, the genocide committed in the years 1904, 1908. But the German society was not only a constitutional monarchy, so not a democratic republic. It was not only a society with an anti-Semitic mindset. It was a society with a racist mindset. It was a society who made the most important opposition to the Kaiser, the Social Democratic Party, to an illegal party. The Social Democratic Party was very important in that time. It was the biggest opposition in Germany. It was the biggest party in Germany that openly proclaimed, we want to have a democratic republic. They wanted to change the constitutional monarchy into a democratic republic. The party was very important more because they did not only have a party, they had trade unions, and they even had funds to support the members of the Social Democratic Party and the trade unions. And the party was so strong that Bismarck feared that this system of the party, the trade unions, and the funds for the members could lead to a situation where the members of the party and the trade unions are more loyal to their party and the trade unions than to the German state. And that is the reason why he invented the very well-known German welfare state, to change that position. He wanted to make the Germans be loyal to the state and not loyal to the Social Democratic Party and to the trade unions of the Social Democratic Party. So and this Social Democratic Party, sorry, I lost my line for a minute. This Social Democratic Party was declared an illegal party in the years 1878 to 1900. The so-called Sozialistengesetze came up. So it was not only not a democratic republic, it did not only have an anti-Semitic and racist mindset, it was a country where the biggest democratic opposition to the Kaiser was forbidden in the years 1878 and 1890. The maybe most important thing to characterize the German society in 19th century was the Citizenship Law, which came up in the year 1913. And the Citizenship Law that defined who can have the German citizenship. That Citizenship Law said German citizens are those that have German parents. That meant someone who had, let's say, come to Germany from Poland or from France or from other countries and did have Polish, French and other parents, he could not become a German citizen. This was a absolute anti-democratic decision of the German government. The Social Democratic Party had opposed. They wanted to have another citizenship law, but other countries like France, like the United States, they had other citizenship laws. They were saying, okay, everybody who was born in our territory, that is a citizen of our country. That was different in Germany. And that law, which defined citizenship as you are a citizen when you have German parents, do you know when that changed? That changed in the year 1999. So many, many years after the Deutsches Kaiserreich we are speaking about now. So let me come to a conclusion. The German Kaiserreich was not only no democratic republic, it had not only an anti-Semitic and racist mindset, it even made illegal the biggest democratic opposition to that government, and in the end it did not give citizenship to everybody living on the territory. It only gave citizenship to those who had German parents. A not really democratic country, more the opposite. Yes, the Deutsches Kaiserreich. Historians who write today about European and German history in the 18th and 19th century, they place in the middle this idea of the revolution of modernity, and they characterize Germany more or less similar as Mr. Dahrendorf, which I have cited in the beginning. The historians that we read are Mr. Dahrendorf, we read Mr. Konrad Jarausch, we read Dan Diener from Jerusalem, maybe you heard of him. And the focus of my class is the question, what is modernity? What is nationalism? What is racism? What is anti-Semitism? What is folkish nationalism? This special form of nationalism in Germany, I have explained it shortly with the citizenship law, where an individual is seen as a part of a blood-defined community. Though the historians discuss Germany in that time as a part of modernity, and they show that the central ideas of modernity in Germany have not really found a place. There was an opposition party. It was more or less a social democratic party who was putting pressure in that direction. that Germany should become a democratic republic. But that opposition was made an illegal party in the years 1878 to 1890. The First World War, that is what the historians say that we read, was more or less the last chance of the ruling elite in Germany to survive this situation. There was big pressure for reforms in the German society in 19th century. And they survived, the elites only survived by pointing at enemies outside and declaring war, leading the society in the war to not come in the situation to do reforms, democratic reforms, and to end their rule. After the First World War, we come to the next period that we deal with in our seminar. We have the Republic of Weimar. And we read to discuss the Republic of Weimar, mainly the books of Ian Kershaw, a very important British historian. He wrote a wonderful biography on Hitler. It's not really a biography, it is more a history of Germany and Hitler. So a history of a character, Hitler, and the country which made him so such an important criminal. So I say the Weimar Republic after First World War, that turned out to be a democratic republic. They had a parliament, they had a constitution, they had full rights for Jews. They had a workday of 8 hours, not more. Women were allowed to vote for the parliament, and the entire thing was called by the Democrats Weimar Republic. Why Weimar Republic? Because Weimar was a city in Germany where important writers of the Enlightenment had lived, like Goethe, like Schiller, and other authors had lived there. And so Weimar Republic was the name because this was a signal to say this is now a German republic which has enlightenment in its mind. And the Constitution of Weimar was finished in the theater house of that city in Weimar. So the Weimar Republic really was an attempt to change the bad German habits of the 19th century. But the Weimar Republic was not very stable. There was a lot of attempts to crash the democratic government and other things. Hitler tried it in the year 1923 for the first time, the very famous beer hall putsch. And other things. It was not a very stable thing. You can understand the history of that republic very well when you read biographies. In my seminar, students do not only read books that I have in my mind and I think that are important to understand that history. Students can bring in their history stories that they think are important for this country. And one of the semesters before, one student brought in the history of Einstein. Maybe you know that Einstein lived in the city of Berlin. He lived close to a subway station. It is called Bayerischer Platz. Go there. Interesting thing there to be. The communal authorities have done research about Einstein and many other people living over there in the time before the Second World War. A very interesting place to be. But Einstein, he had come to the city of Berlin in the year 1913. He was someone who opposed the German politics of war, and was very happy that after the war, Germany had become a democratic republic. But for him, it was very clear shortly after that something was going wrong. In the year 1922, one of his best friends, Walter Rathenau, that was the Minister for Foreign Affairs in the German government, was shot. He was a Jew. And Einstein had seen, when he gave lectures in the Berlin University, Humboldt University, that there have been Nazis in his lectures attacking him as a Jew and such things. So he felt that there was something going on and became skeptical. He was one of the German Jews who did help to create a Jewish state in the Middle East. He was a Zionist. Not so many Jews that lived in Germany were Zionists in those days. Most others did refuse that idea, but he was working for it. He even gave a concert in the big new synagogue in the Oranienburger Straße. And the money that came together after the concert was given to create the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. So this is a very interesting story to understand the Weimar Republic and its crisis. It is a republic where not longer the Kaiser and his friends threatened democracy. It was the citizens of that Weimar Republic who gave away democracy. In the entire Weimar Republic, there was round about 400 politicians of the left and many Jews who were killed by right-wing extremists. Most of these terrorists who had done these acts were not punished. They did not come to court, and they were not punished and did not go to prison. And there were many other things you could see in the time of the Weimar Republic, where it was very clear that the right-wing opposers of the democracy, they felt as if they could do whatever they wanted. And instead of having a public debate about what went wrong with the Germany before the First World War and with the anti-Semitic mindset and the racist mindset and the colonies and the genocide and so on, instead of having such a debate about what went wrong with the old Germany, what could we do better in a new Germany, the Nazis and their supporters, these terrorists, they were creating a debate saying the situation of Germany is the reason for an attack of communists and Jews. Maybe you heard about that stab in the back theory that first only was publicly proclaimed by the military elites. Later on, it became the mindset of big parts of the society. The headline was something like, Germany is threatened by Jews and by communists, and we have to resist this attack on Germany. The Nazis were seeing democracy as a Jewish creation too, and they were arguing democracy is an opposition to the German character. We have to destroy it. And in the end, you know that not a majority of the German voters in the last free elections of March 1933 were voting for the Nazis. It was not a majority, but more or less it was a majority. And a little bit later, on March 23rd, a majority of the members of the German parliament gave away the constitution. They were signing the so-called Enabling Act, a law which more or less said, we, the parliament, we will not any longer control the government. So we have the very curious situation, a society, which late, but it had developed a democracy, this society gave away democracy to the Nazis. Very curious, not curious is the wrong word, situation. Has it been necessary that National Socialism came to power? Let's have a look to Europe and to the other countries in that time. Russia had become an authoritarian government and an authoritarian socialist society. In Italy, 1923, the fascists had come to power. Spain had only become a fascist power because the Germans had helped them had helped General Franco to survive the Civil War. And France had not developed an authoritarian regime in that time, Great Britain not, the United States not, Germany did. What is the reason behind that? Why did Germany come into that status of an authoritarian rule, of a national socialist government, and why did the others not? I think the most important thing is revenge, a feeling of revenge. In the 19th century, the Kaiser more or less had said to the Germans, I will bring you to a place in the sun, and that meant something like, I will make you as important as Great Britain, France, and all the others. And, well, at the end of that war, it was the opposite. Germany had to give away its colonies. Germany lost parts of the country in the east, many other things. It was not allowed to have a big army and other things. So it had not a place in this. Germany did not have a place in the sun. Germany had become a smaller country and not so important country. And many Germans felt, we want to try it a second time. They were looking for revenge. When you listen to speeches of Hitler, and when you want to try to understand the sound, this is revenge. We were beaten and now we fight back. That was the mindset that was going on. If I want to understand my grandfather and why he was so fascinated from the Führer and others, that had to do with this feeling we want to fight back. We want to try it another time. We want to be the biggest power on the European continent and maybe on the world. So National Socialism was not unavoidable, sure. But this mindset of we want revenge for what we dreamed of, that is a very important thing. When you want to understand the development of Germany after Hitler came to power and then the beginning of the war and the Shoah and others, you have to read a book which you can see now, a book written by the historian Jeffrey Herf with the title The Jewish Enemy. That book is so important, and it is important for my class too, because Jeffrey Herf shows in that book that Shoah and warfare are the same. Normally historians say the Second World War is one thing, and the Shoah is another thing. Mr. Jeffrey Herf shows that Shoah and warfare are more or less the same thing because they come out of the same mindset. The mindset is we, the Germans, are under attack by Jews and we are fighting back. So they are turning reality from defeat to the top, or the other way around. It is a total, today we would say fake news, what the Nazis were producing in their propaganda. And in the book, Jeffrey Herf shows that this was not only Nazi propaganda. This was mindset of broad parts of the German population. All the historians are looking a bit fascinated and a little bit full of fear to that story, that the German population, big parts of the German population loved Hitler, and that the resistance was only so small, and that they were following Hitler step to step to the radicalization of the war and the radicalization of the Shoah. That comes out of that mindset, which says we are fighting against our biggest enemy, and that is the Jews. That makes clear why Shoah and warfare were more or less the same thing. You understand that when you read that book. We read in my class only one chapter of that book, but I would say it is a groundbreaking book that you have to read to understand the German society under Hitler. The Shoah is something that you, I think, will not really understand by reading so many books. There's a lot of very fascinating books, and you should read them. But I think the best thing that you can do is to watch a movie. Let's see the official trailer of that movie here now. It's not very long. The movie was done by a French author, Claude Lanzmann. It was published in 1985. Please have a look at the official trailer of that movie.
Tego domku dziwnie w słońcu śnią, jakbyś je oczy przechodzili łzą.
The very important thing with that movie is it brings the the people who watch the movie at the side of those victims of the Germans. We listen to the voice of the survivors, and we even listen to the voices of the killed people. They are represented in that movie by, just silence. They are not speaking any longer, but we hear what they say when we watch that movie. The movie is 9 hours long. You should see that movie. There is no better work in my eyes on the Shoah than that movie. And the second thing that you should do is, when you come to Berlin and visit my class and all the other wonderful classes of this program, you should have a journey to Poland, and you should visit Auschwitz. I have been there very late in my life. I was 35 years. I did not visit the place before. But after I was there, I said, well, if I had been here earlier, I had understood more about German politics under Hitler. It is, in a way I cannot explain how it is. You should go there, you should see it, and because I have been there, my advice would be, go there and let's have a room in a hotel in the city of Krakow, stay there for 2, 3, 4 days, and have a trip to Auschwitz too. Then you can not only see Auschwitz, you can see the wonderful city of Krakow, which has been for many years the head of the capital of Poland. It's really fantastic. It will be a very important moment in your life when you be in Auschwitz and when you be in Krakow. The best reflections on what does that mean, the Shoah, and this war that Germany was fighting against the Soviet Union, against Great Britain, against the United States and all the others. More or less the Germans were fighting against the entire world. The best reflections, I think, that we can follow is ideas of the historian Jander from Jerusalem. Jander says we should differentiate between the Shoah and Zivilisationsbruch, breaking of civilization. The Germans did not only try to kill all the Jews of the world. That was made possible because anti-Semitic thinking had spread in all spheres of the German society, and in the end what was existing was not any longer a modern society that was led by rationality. That was a society, an industrial society that was led by irrational thinkings, by anti-Semitism. Modern military leaders would not fight a two-wars front. They would say it's impossible to win such a war. The Germans did. And why did they do so? Because the most important aim was to kill all the Jews. That was the center of the ideas, and that is why they were fighting this two-front war. Modern economy leaders would not say that it is a good idea to kill big parts of the consumers or the workers of a economy. Germans did, because the main goal of their policy was to kill all the Jews. So this is not only Shoah, this is a break of every civilized, rational way of thinking that characterizes the German society. It is the opposite of what was defined by Dahrendorf and others as a modern society. It is an anti-modern society characterized by irrational thinking, by the wish of the government and of big parts of the society to kill the Jews. That is the main focus of that society, of the German society in the years under Hitler. We are back at the beginning of my lecture. It was not by accident that the German society was not liberated by resistance fighters from Germany. It had to be liberated by resistance fighters from the United States, from Poland, from the Soviet Union, from France, and from all the other countries of this world. The civilized world had to fight against Germany in the Second World War, and the German resistance had to be very weak, very small, and the resistance in many other countries, France, Poland, and others, they had to be supported by the Allied soldiers. Otherwise, they would have been too weak too. The German soldiers were fighting until the end because they feared that the Allies that were coming would do the same thing to them as what they have done to Poles, to people in Soviet Union and in other countries. They knew what they had done. They had fought a war and they had committed bigger crimes than any other army before. They had tried to kill every Jew. They had killed in Poland 6 million people, 3 million Jewish Poles, 3 million non-Jewish Poles. In the Soviet Union, around about 27 million people had been killed, not by accident. It was a planned thing. The Germans wanted to run the Soviet Union after a victory of the German army under the control of the Germans, and all the people living there should be slave workers for the Germans. So the soldiers knew what they had done, and they were fighting, supporting Hitler until the end, because they feared the Allies that come. They will do the same thing to us as what we have done to them. After the Allied victory, the Allies differed in many things. Even when they were fighting against Germany, it was clear that Stalin was following other ideas than Roosevelt, sure, but they did not differ in two things. First thing was, there will now be talks with the Germans before the defeat. And second thing, without full denazification, there will not be a democratic, civilized Germany again. And that is why they started the so-called Nuremberg trials. Nuremberg trials, because it happened in Nuremberg. Very important thing. It was the attempt of the Allies to win Germans for a critical examination of their past. But, well, that form of examination was not really loved by the Germans. Like my grandfather, for example, they called it victor's justice. And they were, many of them were, in 1945, not able to recognize, did not want to recognize what they had done. There was a lack of empathy for their victims, and many of them, like my grandfather, were not able to express that empathy to the German victims until the end of their life. I never heard my grandfather saying something like, oh, this was bad, or I should not have done this, or something like that. This was things he was not able to. The Nuremberg trials were not loved by a majority of the Germans, and the Allies, well, saw what was going on. And when the Cold War started, both sides, so Stalin and the Americans and the Western Allies, more or less stopped the denazification because they feared if they would not stop, the Germans from their side, from east or west, would stop the support for the Allies, and especially the United States wanted to win over the West Germans to their side, and they did not want an opposing population society. The two German states developed in totally different ways. One became a relatively stable democracy, the other one a not so very stable communist dictatorship. But both sides differed in many other things too. Directly after the war, we can see that in a interesting, shocking thing that happened on the eastern side. In winter 1952, 1953, more or less all the Jews living on the East German side of the of Germany went out of East Germany because the state, the East German state, had started a campaign saying the Jews, most of them are spies of the American Secret Service. They have survived Nazism because they were supported by the American Secret Service, and now they have come to destroy socialism. So this was a really harsh campaign. It started in the Soviet Union and went on in all the other Eastern European states, and came to East Germany too. And in winter 1953, they were doing such a harsh campaign against Jews, Zionists, cosmopolitans, and others, that many Jews of the GDR went out because they feared there could happen something similar as has happened in German National Socialism. The other side, West German state, that developed into a relatively stable democracy. There's a wonderful book by Thomas Schwartz, which is called America's Germany, which describes the first years, and it's a very interesting book dealing with the question, how did the United States and Adenauer communicate? How did Mr. McCloy, who was the one who was sending the messages forth and back, how did he try to convince Adenauer to form a democratic state? A very interesting book. You should read that. And the title America's Germany could be given to the West German Republic too. It was a democracy that was brought to Germany, and West Germany was formed a little bit after the model of the American democracy. Insofar, the name of that book is a good name. It could be given as a name to the West German democracy. Maybe democracy found a better ground in West Germany because, well, economy was running much, much better than in East Germany. Beginning with the 50s, the time is around about the war against Korea. The German economy was booming in a way that the average worker now could have holidays in Italy, could have a car, could have a TV and other things. So democracy and the economic miracle in West Germany are one. In East Germany, dictatorship, unstable dictatorship, and a not really working well economy are characterizing the country. 1961, the dictatorship of East Germany had to build a wall that stopped the big mass of people that went out of East Germany because, well, on the one side it was poor, on the other side it was a dictatorship. They did not want to live any longer over there, and so they went out. And so this unstable communist dictatorship only was able to exist further on because it was enclosed into a wall, total wall. I was living in the 1970s in Berlin as a student, and even my life was watched by the Secret Service of the GDR, because in the year 1979 I had fallen in love with a girl from the other side of Berlin. And, well, the Secret Service of the GDR, they feared that I and my lover and her friends could start something like a revolution to overthrow communist power in the East. This was fully bullshit, but, well, they did it. And so I have a little Stasi file, which you see. The title of it you can see here on the photograph. The sentence I like most in that Stasi file is person, decadent exterior, but polite appearance. Yeah, this is how they saw me in these years in the 1970s. The best movie you can watch to understand the development of the Eastern European continent in the time of the Cold War is what you see here on the picture. Farewell Comrades is the title, a documentary with a lot of eyewitnesses talking, a lot of government people talking, even an interview with Mikhail Gorbachev they have, and dissident people who speak to the authors of that movie. One of the best summaries of that development. My friends and me from East Berlin, we were visiting in the year 1981 the state of Poland. We all were fascinated by that new independent trade union that had developed in Poland, the Solidarność. We wanted to see it, and we wanted to talk to those people who did make it. And so we traveled to Poland to see that this was a clear sign that the power of Soviet Union had come to an end. Not to an end, but power was eroding. When more or less an entire country, like that was the case in Poland, an entire country was organizing itself in a trade union with the name Solidarność, opposing the communist dictatorship, and created an autonomous organization, not led by the Communist Party, only led by its members and financed by its members, then that was a clear sign that in the Polish society, communism and authoritarian rule had lost the battle. There were similar signs in other Eastern European countries. When we came back from that visit in Poland in the year 1981, we were convinced that earlier or later, the dictatorships, Soviet Union style in Eastern Europe, would collapse. That happened then, let's say, a little bit later, not 1981, but 1989, but it happened. And you will understand much better than from my words what happened in Eastern Europe in these years from this wonderful movie, Farewell, Comrades. We watch parts of that movie in my class too, because we are interested not only in books and historians who discuss history. We want to listen to the voices of eyewitnesses too. When in 1990 the East German state collapsed and the democracy came into the East German society, the German philosopher Mr. Jürgen Habermas, he called it nachholende Revolution, a catch-up revolution. That meant things came to East Germany, and not only to East Germany, to the other Eastern European countries, that had been refused all the time since the end of the Second World War. A democracy, or like Dahrendorf has said, the revolution of modernity. Citizenship, democratic politics, and others came back to Eastern Europe, to some countries back, like Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, and so on. They had been democratic republics before Hitler came to power. To others, the thing was new. And so far, nachholende Revolution, catching up revolution, maybe for East Germany is not really the right word, because East Germany before the end of the Second World War was not a democratic country. It had been a part of Nazi Germany too. I come to an end. This entire story of Germany from 1871 to 1989 is a very interesting story. Europe, more or less, had a big problem in its center, because there was a society which, from the beginning of the modern times, refused democracy. It refused what Ralph Dahrendorf has called the revolution of modernity, the idea that we are all born free and equal. That was something that did not really have big support in the German governments and in the German society. That had to be brought to this country by, your grandparents and your parents. Without them, without the defeat of Hitler, democracy would not have been a part of our, become a part of our society. I want to say thank you again. We historians are not good in looking forward. So in my class, we are not looking forward what will happen to Germany in the center of Europe. We read in my class a brochure by the Amadeo Antonio Foundation, Germany after 1945. And they show in this text, it was a presentation they made some years ago. They show in this text how this old anti-modern philosophies of the Germans, the Völkisch nationalism, racism, and anti-Semitism, I think these three are the main threats to modernity in Germany, how they are still part of, or have been still part of, the two German states after 1945. Yes, West Germany became a more or less stable democracy, a parliamentarian republic. East Germany did not, but 1989, when the wall was breaking, it became part of this successful and stable Western society, but it is unclear where this republic will go in the future. As a historian, I'm always skeptical. I think that things that have happened can happen again, and insofar, I have three main things in my mind that make me very skeptical. First thing is that when Germany was united in the year 1989-1990, they did not sign a peace plan, a peace treaty. And that means that there is no contract that says we, the Germans, are very clear that we are the reason for the Shoah and the Second World War, and that many people have suffered a lot under our politics in Europe. There's no contract which says that. But that mindset for Germany is very important. We should know what we have done. I told you that my grandfather never ever was able to say, well, what we have done is wrong. I think this is a very important point for German democracy. If Germans do not know what has happened, what their parents and grandparents have done, then we cannot be sure about the future of our democracy. The second thing that makes me skeptical is that since the October 3rd, 1990, this was the official date of the unification of the two German states. Since that day, we have 210 people that were killed by right-wing terrorists, Jews, migrants, homosexuals, and others. And most of the killers have not been punished. I do not want to say this is Weimar Republic, but the number of 210 people that have been killed by right-wing terrorists is a shocking high number, and it's a bad sign for our democratic republic. Third thing, we have now in our parliament a party called AfD, Alternative für Deutschland. The aim of that party is more or less to drive out all the migrants living in Germany, and secondly, to attack all this wonderful memorial culture that we have developed in Germany since 1945, remembering the crimes of the Germans and especially remembering the victims of these crimes, giving them a voice again, like the movie Shoah, which is an important thing. The party AfD is opposed to that. They want to drive out all the migrants, and they want to stop this thing of memorial culture. So they are very dangerous. This party gets support in some parts of Germany with 25%. That is a lot. They have a fraction in the federal parliament. They get 13% of the voters. That is much too, but not as much as 25%, as they have in regions like Saxon, like Thüringen, and the other places of Germany. This is a very dangerous thing. We see that other societies of Europe turn their mind to dictatorship or other things. So what I want to say, I'm skeptical. I see that there are signs in Germany too that point to a anti-democratic development. But historians look back. We are not good in looking forward. Maybe it's better we come back to the beginning. As I said, please send my best wishes to your grandparents and parents and say thank you very much. And maybe in the future, that is a good sign that we now can talk to each other as people living in democratic societies. I hope that you and me and we all will not let happen again what has happened. Thank you very much for your patience, and I hope maybe next summer you will be part of my class. I would be happy.
We hope you enjoyed this week's lecture. You can find the dates and descriptions for all sessions in our digital lecture series, as well as information about our instructors and their courses on our website. Also connect with us on social media and attend one of our informational webinars. Thank you very much for watching, and we hope to see you again soon, online or on site here in Berlin.